Right.
We live?
We are ready to go. We're live.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the December 8th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. And first up is to approve the minutes from the November 16th meeting. Do I have a motion? Penny, second. Julie, all in favor? Okay. Thank you. Next is to review and approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion? Sherry, second. Brendan, all in favor? Okay. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. If there's anyone participating remotely who wishes to address the board, please do so by using the raise hand feature. And Dr. Lutzy will move you over.
There's no one on there.
Yeah, I just
Nope.
looked in. Nobody there. Nobody coming in. We are good.
Okay, so we will move right into reports and recognition with an update on COVID by Dr. Lutzy and the cabinet.
Yes, good evening. I'll give an update on a couple of things happening and then ask Dr. Carenti and Dr. Keating to talk a little bit about two other quick things. Good news, we continue to see that our mitigation strategies in our schools are working. The quarantining that we're doing at the K-8 level and at the high school level is working well. It's really, the whole purpose, as you know, is to quickly identify and isolate to contain the virus spread. And we're seeing that that is working for us. The high school being in a hybrid continues to yield benefits as well. In the last week, we've seen a number of positive cases, even just these last few days, most of them at the high school. And so by being in a hybrid, it really does help to reduce the number of close contacts, which not only reduces the number of people who have to quarantine, but also reduces the number of people possibly exposed who could get sick and carry it on. So that's working well for us still at the high school. And then the approach we've been using about quarantining the cohorts at the K-8 level is working well also. We had a couple of those these last couple of days. We've had a kindergarten class, a second grade class, a few others that we've had to quarantine the entire class. And I want to share the parents, the kids, the teachers absolutely understand it. They're grateful for it. They have been wonderful. They really have. And so they're up and running, and the teachers are prepared. They bring their materials home and do what they have to do. The CDC recently changed its guidelines for quarantines, and in a call last night with the DPH, I'm expecting that they'll publish their new guidelines in the next day or so. And what I'm anticipating that to say is a shift from the 14 days to the 10 days of quarantine. I do not believe that we're going to implement any kind of a testing out option at this point. Because there's several reasons why we wouldn't. But the 10 days, going from 14 to 10, will make a big difference for our staff, for our families, and for everybody. Once the DPH publishes its guidelines, we will do a review of who is currently under quarantine, and we'll communicate directly with any families that it impacts. So if they're just, if they're in days, if they're in quarantine, we can shorten that to the 10 days instead of 14, which is a significant change, as you can imagine. We're cutting almost a third of the time off. And one of the reasons for it are very solid. We know a lot more about the virus now. We've been watching and looking and paying close attention as a country and science and the research about the percentage chance of testing positive after certain days. And we wouldn't be alone in this as a state or as a town doing it. Europe has been doing it this way for a while. Vermont has been doing it this way since May. And Vermont is widely considered to be one of the states handling this best. So those states around us are in various places as far as what they're going to do. But I'm pretty confident that our DPH is going to recommend a 10-day. And only in extreme cases allow that 7-day test out option. The 10 days only work if the person who is under quarantine is entirely asymptomatic the whole time. So the recommended time is still 14 days. So if somebody is under quarantine and doesn't feel great, then they should still do the full 14 days. And so that's something that we have to be very clear in our communication and make sure that anybody who's in quarantine is daily monitoring in order to make sure they're not showing any symptoms. So that's part of the messaging as well. So we'll get all of that out once the DPH puts its recommendations together. Let's see. In the last weekend, our drama productions went live, and if you're able to view them online, they did a wonderful job. Alan is now working to put together a brief presentation for us that we'll have in an upcoming meeting to show how some of the cinematography they used and the techniques that they employed really made it look like the actors were together on the stage when they were more than 6 feet apart. You know, it's amazing how they pulled all this together. And I really want to credit Alan and actually Darlene for finding and hiring some incredibly talented people. I guess it's a thin silver lining for what's happening at Broadway and in Manhattan. With everything closed, some of incredibly talented people were looking for something to do. Alan knew them, scooped them up, Darlene hired them, and they did some amazing work with our kids. So we'll share some of that with you in an upcoming meeting to share. But it's wonderful, powerful stuff. And our kids learned not just the drama, but also all the cinematography and some of the other pieces. So it's amazing. We are now looking to see what we can do for our musical, for the winter musicals. It's tricky, as you know, sports are on pause for anyone from kindergarten, right, or really birth, right through up to college. All of those sports are on hold right now. And their guidelines are 4 students plus 1 adult can be in a space to do conditioning, but not sports. And so we've talked to them about, can we split a gym in half? You know, our gym is a 1.5, it's enormous. Can we split that in half? Can we go outside, split the track or the field or something like that in order to get more kids together? And the answer has universally been no. In any one location, whether it's a gym, regardless of the size, or on a field or on a track or anywhere, it's one group of 4 student athletes plus 1 adult. So that's a pretty serious constraint. And their concern is about mixing. So if you've got, say, 3 different groups on a field, they're concerned that the kids will intermix during the activities or before or after those activities. And the whole thing is about containing the spread and keeping cohorts together as much as possible. So we're following those guidelines certainly with athletics. We're also looking to apply them to drama. So if it's 4 performers and a coach or somebody, a mentor who can work with them, can we use classrooms? And maybe put a group of 5 in each different classroom, not let them commingle, but do rehearsals that way. And if so, maybe we can keep the kids engaged with this over time. So we're working with the Department of Public Health and looking to get some feedback on that now. As I'm sure you're aware, drama rehearsals generally are like that anyway. So they're all in the auditorium, but there's only a couple of kids up on stage and they're practicing different things. And it's only towards the end that everybody gets together in the ensembles and all of that. So if we can put this together, it'll help our kids, I think, to keep having those experiences. But we're not sure if we're going to be able to. It depends on the feedback from the DPH. The Connecticut State Board of Education made a change for snow days, as you, I think, are aware, where they said that snow days can count as school days if you do them as remote days. The challenge with that is if we're in session and a snow day hits, rarely does it come where we can call it the day before. Right? I mean, if we did, I'd sleep a lot better in the wintertime. So what happens is it's a 4 a.m., a 5 a.m. call based on different factors and whatever. So it's unrealistic to think students would be able to quickly flip into remote instruction on a random Wednesday that we have a snowstorm. So in those instances, we've made the decision we're going to have just a traditional snow day that we'll make up as we always have. If, however, we're remote learning at that point because of factors related to COVID, obviously, but if our district is remotely learning, so they're at home every day, and there's a snowstorm, then we could count that as a school day, and we will, because obviously they're used to logging in, they know how to do it, it keeps that rhythm going, and I think parents will be grateful that we give kids something to do on those days, because sending them out to go sledding with their friends probably isn't an option, given the fact if we're in remote learning, it's due to COVID and spread. So we think that makes good sense. Now, we might shorten the day just a little if it's really nice snow so they can go out and make some snowmen, but we'll make those decisions when the time comes. The third part is if we have a lot of snow this winter and we do wind up canceling several days, then we might look to see about putting a blizzard bag or something together so that we can, on a moment's notice, use that day as a remote learning day and not have to make it up at the end of the year. So if we get into a place where, we might look at taking days away from April break or things like that, then we'll adjust and we'll make that change as need be. But for the time being, I think this makes sense going forward. So what we're seeing as far as COVID in the community and COVID in the schools is with our students, the primary source of spread continues to be households. And by household, that's more than just members of the immediate family. That's also nannies, if there's a nanny coming into an elementary home, working with students, or babysitters. So the spread if it's in the household with any one person there, people are at least 4 times as likely in that household to also test positive. So we really are working to communicate to families, if anyone in that household tests positive, keep everyone home. So if a nanny was in the house and was there and then tests positive, the household has to quarantine as a result. And we've run into a few problems here and there with people coming to school not necessarily realizing that they should have been quarantined because of that. So we're purposefully not saying if there's a member of your family, we're saying a member in your household, because it's really about the exposure, right? So we want to keep getting that message out as clearly as we can. We're also seeing, of course, gatherings, right? It's still gatherings. It's people that are indoor gatherings, not wearing masks, and we all can start staying socially distant, but we're human beings and, we are social creatures, and we wind up before too long not keeping our distance and being too close. And right now, the governor's orders are 10 people or fewer indoors or outdoors at all time at all gatherings. And if it's indoors, we ask to wear a mask. It really works, so to keep with that message and keep reiterating that. A recent report out of New York City's Public Health Department that, they haven't quite published yet, but they've reported out on, they shared that they found that if people are in gatherings of more than 10 people, that people there are twice as likely to get infected. And that's where the number 10 comes from. So there is a research based on that. We did hit an unfortunate milestone today, according to Johns Hopkins online. We're over 15 million cases in the country now. Locally here in Fairfield County, actually, in Connecticut first, we also, just from yesterday to today, the positivity rate jumped from 6 to 8.6 in a single day. And as you know, Connecticut is the 3rd best is what I'm hearing, for their testing per capita. So there's a lot of testing going on, and it's showing this jump in positivity rate. The other thing that we saw jump today is there's a website called COVID Act Now, and they gather data and put things forward. And we use that as sort of, it points the direction for what the DPH is likely to report on Thursdays, because the Act Now website is updated more frequently. So DPH's data goes from Sunday back 2 weeks when they report on Thursday. But this COVID Act Now is more of a rolling number. We saw that jump. It was around, for the number of cases per 100,000 people in Fairfield County, it was somewhere in the mid-60s yesterday, and it's in the mid-80s today. So we look at this, and I've been talking to a few folks, we think this may be the beginning of the Thanksgiving impact that we've been talking about. And so we're really going to keep a very close eye on this. On the good side of it all, however, or the positive, here locally on Friday, we tested 502 staff and students, majority staff, and about 125 students or so, and we had 2 positives. Both of them are asymptomatic. Both of them still feel fine. And I spoke with one of them who was just absolutely flabbergasted that she was positive, just couldn't believe it because she was perfectly fine. So that's the good news, and the low number is good news. And I think that it shows that if somebody feels symptoms, if they can isolate themselves and go get tested, that's where we're still finding our positives, right? Because the testing we do in school is purely asymptomatic. And so I think it shows that our staff, our students are following the recommendations in and outside of school, that they're following the precautions, keeping themselves safe. And the positives that we found, and we did, we had started yesterday, we started the week with 13 new positive cases in the schools that came from the weekend. and in Monday. So it's not that we don't have positive cases, but the positives we're finding are from symptomatic testing. And almost all of them are from household spread. So, that's why that messaging is so important about if it's in your household, quarantine the household, and manage that way. And, and the other part, of course, is to isolate the person who's ill. Because if you can do that, they can sleep separately and use a separate bathroom and trying to be really careful and wearing masks in your home when you can't, then you obviously have a much better chance of not contracting it across the family. So, so far, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're up and running. I wrote on Sunday, we haven't had to close a building for a day yet, and knock on wood, everywhere you can, please. We approach each day, ready to go. I can't thank everyone enough. Our Janet and the nursing staff continue. They're working right through the weekends, working right through the nights, doing everything that they can do to keep things rolling. I've thought a lot about why it's working in some places and not others, and sort of a lot about kind of our work and where we are and how we got here. And I'm really proud to say, foundationally, we're here because of the trusting relationships we have with Vivian, Rana, the union, and our staff, with our principals and each other and their staff, with our custodians, with our food service, our TAs, our secretaries, everybody that's involved. It's, when you have trusting relationships with people in an organization, then you can communicate openly and you can problem solve collaboratively. And that's what we've been doing since the spring. And those relationships really have strengthened ever since. And by being able to, with psychological safety, share concerns and issues and fears with each other, trusting each other with that information, we then can work together to solve whatever the problem is and really help each other through it. And as an organization, as an entire school district, we've been doing that together from the beginning. And it's multi-directional. It's everybody's involvement in doing that. And it's just so incredible, the results for our kids and what we were able to do as a result. So I'm so grateful for everybody that's involved with that. And many of them are on the screen here as well. So I'll take a quick pause if there are any questions or anything about that. But then I also want to give Dr. Crenti an opportunity to share a little bit about sort of how the program is adjusting a little bit for some of our kids as a result of COVID.
Question? Penny?
I was just wondering, because of the number of asymptomatic cases, once somebody is quarantining because they had, exposure to somebody who was close, not to test out of quarantine, but in addition to quarantine, what's the discussion? We don't require you to get a test at the end. Mm-hmm. I was just curious what the epidemiologists and things were saying about that.
Sure. So actually, it's a wonderful question, because it's maybe our natural instinct, if we hear we're a close contact, to run out and get a test, and that's the wrong thing to do, because it's really you want to wait till days. We just had this conversation I did with a couple of doctors, Dr. Reed included, at 4:30 today. It's really between days 4 and 6 that you would want to get tested if you believe you were a close contact and you want to check. If you run right out, you may not have the proteins and whatever that would trigger the positive test. So I think you should, if you can, if you're a close contact, it's a good idea to get tested. But before doing that, it's to really try to isolate yourself and quarantine. There are also the difference in the types of tests, right? So we've talked about the rapid antigen tests versus the PCR tests. And if you are likely to be positive, the rapid tests work well. But the PCR tests, which take 24, 48 hours or more, are more accurate for asymptomatic and in general overall.
Thanks.
Sherry?
So I just had a comment and then a question. So my first comment is that I'm just so amazed, and I know other parents are as well, at the extraordinary lengths that so many of our teachers and staff are taking to really still deliver an enriching, quote, normal school experience. I mean, the example you covered with Alan Sneath and the
Yeah.
musical theater performance. I also know like Jay Egan, and they're doing some virtual conditioning right now, short of being able to go in smaller groups. And I just think those examples really, it just makes me feel so lucky to be in this district because, everyone's doing the best they can. And it's extraordinary, and I think needs to be commended and commented and acknowledged. So my one question is, as we start to approach colder weather, more frigid temperatures, I'm curious how we'll continue to use the outdoor spaces and if we'll continue to make it mandatory. I know like right now it's mandatory for some of the gym classes to go outside, and some of the teachers are, making it mandatory to go outside for mass breaks.
Yep.
And if we will continue to do that at all temperatures, or
Yep.
if, what's the approach on that?
So I think heavy winter coats should be in everyone's Christmas list because, we're going to continue using the outdoors as much as we can. It's certainly if it's raining, if it's sleet, if it's horrible out, of course, that's different. But for PE and others, we're going to keep using the outdoors. The other thing we're going to keep doing is the way we've adapted our ventilation, which really means our classrooms will be cold and kids and teachers should wear more layers. And it also means our budget is going to be much more than it has been as far as our heating fuel goes. But what we've done, we've put fans in windows and done other things to bring in fresh air and to, circulate out, create negative pressure in each of the spaces. So, those strategies are working, and we can shorten the breaks outside and we can make some other adjustments. And, I'll leave it in the individual, teachers' understanding because they're the ones on the ground. And so if they say it's a day we can't go outside, I'm certainly going to agree with them and trust them in making that decision. But in general, people should be prepared to go outside, dress in layers, work to be a little warmer. And because again, that's an important mitigation strategy that I think I feel very strongly that we need to continue to follow.
Okay, great. So we can all tell our middle school boys that Dr. Lutzy said you must wear a coat.
At least not the shorts.
I'll keep trying.
And if you need me to call them, I'll be glad to.
It's a battle.
No shorts. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Or they can do jumping jacks on their mass breaks. Okay.
All right,
So, Dr. Krenti, that's all right?
great.
So I'm going to start putting my old principal hat on. As an elementary principal, we used to check the temperature daily and the wind chill. And we would send those kids out regardless of whether the temperature was in the 20s or 30s. We did have a cutoff point, but we always made sure that we got the kids outside, even if it was for a short break. So we're just going to extend those recess rules right into middle school and into high school so that the kids can get outside with their mass breaks. And it certainly doesn't bother the kids. It bothers the adults more. So it's more the adults need the hats, the warm parkas, the heavy gloves and mittens to wear outside for recess. The kids will continue to wear their shorts and be perfectly fine with their shorts outside. Even though they're shivering and turning blue, they'll keep telling you, I'm fine, I'm warm. They do, I think it's a good idea to continue to try to get them outside as much as possible. I did just want to talk about what we've learned from remote learning at the elementary level. So several weeks back when we had a kindergarten and second grade class go out into quarantine, it was truly amazing how fast the teachers adapted to remote learning. They literally went home with their docu-cameras, they went home with their laptops, and they just basically created the old classroom in their house. And in talking with the two teachers who first had that experience at the elementary level to go remote, they said, it's like when I was growing up and I was playing school at home, except I actually had students to play school with. So they really learned a lot. And then they talked a lot about the schedule and the pacing of the day for the elementary kids. And it was amazing that we were able to fulfill a full day of school for the kids. The first time that they went out, we quickly made a decision that we were just going to cancel specials for those quarantining days that they went out, and that we were just going to end the day an hour early, and that would give the teacher an opportunity to do planning and get herself ready for the next day. And then when we started talking with the teachers, the one thing that we really learned from them was that the kids really missed the specials. They missed being part of that community. They missed seeing their gym teacher and their art teachers and their music teachers. So that when we move forward in designing our remote schedule and the next class had to go out, we're now including the specials block. So the kids in the elementary schools are really doing a full day of school. That's not to say that they don't take breaks and that they have time to put their screen down, and whether they're reading independently or whether they're taking a snack break or they're taking an extended lunch and recess break. We do give them an hour at lunch and recess to really kind of break away from the computer and get outside or have their lunch, down in the kitchen with their family. And it's really been just an amazing experience working with these teachers. And what we did was, during one of our half-day professional learning sessions, we actually had them present to their colleagues. So we had the kindergarten teacher talk with the first and kindergarten teachers, and then we had the second grade teacher talk with the second through fourth grade teachers about what the experience was like, about what their schedule was like. And they really have come such a long way with all of the technology tools. They really can't do what they're doing right now without Seesaw in K1 and 2, and giving the kids that independence to be able to go in and share their assignments and take pictures of their assignments. And they can't do it without Zoom. And it's amazing just listening to the two of them. The kindergarten teacher never has the kids log off from Zoom. The kindergarten teacher actually has the kids go back into the waiting room, and then she will call them when it's time to come back into the Zoom session. So they're not going in and out of Zoom. They go into the waiting room, they go into breakout rooms, where the second grade teacher said that it was okay for her kids to log off, and then they knew enough to log back on. But they talked a lot about even the activities that they would do with the kids. There were some math activities, and the teacher said that she was on the Zoom the entire time, even though the kids were working independently, completing their assignment, and she would prompt them, she'd ask questions of them, and it was just amazing how they would answer her back just like they were in a classroom. So we learned a lot from that experience, and if we do have to go remote, we're feeling very confident at the elementary level, where I know that they were struggling the most last year from March to June. And we received quite a bit of positive feedback from parents about the pace of the day and what it looks like for the kids. So I just wanted to share that as an experience of what we've accomplished at the elementary school. They've really, it's just amazing what the teachers have been able to put together and just kind of move forward with the instruction that needs to happen on a day-to-day basis. And when they return to school, they're feeling like they're right where they were supposed to be, where their colleagues were, where their classmates were in that grade level. They didn't miss a beat with the curriculum. And many of them reported that they had extra time because there were less transitions. They didn't have to move from up, down to the cafeteria or out to the playground, or a gym teacher would come in and then they'd have to come back and get the kids calmed down in their classrooms. So they were able to actually accomplish quite a bit. I did want to just kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that we traditionally do and how we've made adjustments. One of the things that you may recall in the summertime was that the State Department of Ed did say that it was important that we move forward with our teacher evaluation system this year. As you know, in March to June, everything was put on pause and teachers didn't receive summative evaluations. This year, they're saying that teachers do need to receive summative evaluations and they need to receive ongoing feedback from their administrators. The one thing that's slightly different is they don't need to receive a rating at the end of the year, but they should receive that feedback. So we really took a hard look at all of the indicators that we have, and what we actually did was we designed some goals that teachers could adopt for this year, really thinking about what we learned from March to June and thinking about the pandemic that we're all in and what we need to focus on as a group. And that was really about monitoring the student learning. So that was one of their choices. There was differentiation of instruction and then also descriptive feedback. And all all of these really kind of related into how do we keep our students engaged, whether they're fully in person, whether they're in a hybrid experience, or whether they're in a remote experience. And how do we continue to provide that rigorous learning for our students so that they can continue to move forward with their academics, as well as their intellectual and social emotional needs. And then the other thing that we did as a district was we adopted a learning community growth goal and a whole school student learning goal that the whole district is working on together. And it's really been nice because it will allow us to provide professional learning opportunities on Wednesdays. And so in our learning community growth goal, what we really focused in on was educational equity. And that's really talking about the individual child and what do they need to thrive intellectually, physically, socially, and emotionally. That's really going to help them to achieve that maximum potential. And then the other one was on our whole student learning goal. And that one is all about how do we keep students engaged in rigorous and relevant learning, and how do we help them to continue to thrive in this environment. So it allows us to keep focused as a whole district, as a staff, and helping us to move our students forward. Teachers did have a choice to pick a different indicator if they didn't want to pick monitoring student learning, differentiated instruction, or descriptive feedback, but the majority of them have adopted those as their PGP, the professional growth plans this year. And we're doing PLCs, professional learning communities, as well as professional development in these areas to help our teachers to grow and to adjust in this environment that they're working in right now. The other things that we're moving forward with is kindergarten registration. So this week we will release our ad into the Canaan advertiser, and then we'll also be putting it online this year. So we'll use the Canaan advertiser. And what's nice about it going online is that it will actually be a link that they'll be able to click on, and the link will bring them right to the district website where they'll be able to pre-register. So we're hoping by offering it as an online, and they see the ad in the New Canaan advertiser, they'll be able to click right on the link, and we'll start to get the pre-registered and get those numbers in for kindergarten. As you know, that's really important for us for an enrollment perspective and certainly for a budgeting perspective. And then in January, the elementary principals, along with Judy Phillips, the new director of New Canaan Cares, will be doing their traditional presentation to preschool parents about that transition into kindergarten. And so we're looking forward to having the parents come together virtually. We'll run a webinar very similar to what we did for our kindergarten orientation in the springtime. But we're hoping that we'll get a big turnout for that as well. The other thing that we're also planning at the different end is that 8th to 9th grade transition. So believe it or not, when the kids actually return in January, we're already thinking about what that 9th grade transition period looks like for the high school. And they usually have a parent coffee in January. And then in February, there's often placement tests that the kids will have an opportunity to take as 8th graders going into 9th grade. And so you may recall that we've made some adjustments with social studies last year. And so there was no placement test in social studies, but there still seemed to be that placement test in English and in science. So for those of you that might have had the high schooler that sat for those honors placement tests, know that it could be close to 300 kids sitting in a gymnasium completing a paper pencil task. And obviously in a pandemic in February, that's something that we're not going to be able to do. So I had the opportunity to meet with the administrators as well as the department chairs and coordinators to talk a little bit about how can we adjust what we might want to look at for students in moving into those honors classes. And so we realized that we already have a lot of data and that we're going to be using data that they do every day. So the NWEA is something that they've always used in the past. So we'll continue to use the NWEA for reading and for math. All of our 3rd through 8th graders took an NWEA in the fall. And if we need to run another one in the winter or the spring, we're able to do so. Even those kids who were remote were able to take an NWEA. We're able to lock down that browser and they're able to move right in and complete that. And then we'll look at their first and second quarter grades, which is something that we've always done as well. And then what we decided to do was look at some of their unit assessments that they traditionally do in English in 8th grade and some unit assessments that they do in science. And we're going to use those and we'll work collaboratively with the 8th grade teachers and the 9th grade English and science teachers to work through that placement piece for the students. So we do think that actually this will be a better indicator of the students that move into the honors, because it's going to be more of that day-to-day, what they do on a day-to-day basis in school. And then obviously there's always going to be the appeals process, and everything else will be set for the students if there's any questions that we have in regards to those placements. There's always compelling information that can also come in from a teacher. And then probably on a real positive note, our Flip Chromebooks arrived on Friday. Those were ordered back in July. I think July 1st, we had the order placed with the anticipation that they were supposed to arrive in August. And the Flip Chromebooks were ordered specifically for 8th grade. So, and they had started to, we used the Flip Chromebooks last year with our 8th graders, but we didn't have enough because, as you recall, we had carts, and that was how we were instructing our kids. They were using the carts and taking the Flip Chromebooks. And we chose the Flip Chromebooks mainly because of some of the math work that we do, and we wanted the kids to be able to use it as a tablet at times, but also to be able to use it for other purposes. So we were very excited. They finally arrived on Friday. DTS came in over the weekend and worked really hard to get them all inventoried. And today we started to turn the Flip Chromebooks out to the 8th graders, because we had some 8th graders that had Flip Chromebooks, and then we had some 8th graders who had just touch Chromebooks. So the ultimate mission was to try to get each grade level with the same device that will allow us to move forward with some of our curriculum demands. So we'll continue to do that, and then we'll start looking at taking the touch Chromebooks from 8th grade and putting them into 7th graders' hands, and then we're going to take what's in 7th grade and put them into the 5th grade hands, because we have some 5th graders with laptops still out there. So we're trying to get those into Chromebooks. So that's just a few things that we're doing from a programming perspective. We're still moving forward with our curriculum. We're still running data teams. And we're really learning a lot about our kids and how much they're progressing during this pandemic. So I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Thank you for that excellent update. Any questions? Bob, did you have raise your hand? No.
Oh. Well
All right.
done.
Yeah.
Great. Then,
Thank you.
thanks, Jim. The Dr. Keating has a quick update for us on, I think, food services and maybe a few other things. Definitely food services. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Jill just mentioned, we were thrilled to get the Chrome flip tops in last week, and it was great to start deploying them today. We actually do have another order that's coming in that we're waiting for, and we do expect that second order of 230 units to come in January. But I think the units that came in last Friday really give us the opportunity to equip all the kids at Saks with the proper units if we have to go out. So that was really exciting and good news last week. To piggyback on what Brian was saying before, I do think all of our protocols that we have put in place for cleaning and disinfecting are working well. And I did want the board to know that we do monitor compliance with the protocols very closely. We have schedules that all of our cleaners fill out every single day for every space that they clean, and they sign off on the fact that they have followed the protocols that we have set out. And they send them to central office every single week, once a week. And we do go through every single one, audit every single sheet to make sure that everyone is complying. And we also have drop-in, unexpected, unscheduled, I should say, visits from both Scott, the head custodians in the building, and Dan. So we are watching it very carefully. And I do believe the protocols have been implemented with fidelity for the most part, and have been really instrumental in keeping us in school. And it applies both to the buildings and to the buses. So today we had a nice call with Jack O'Brien Roy, myself, and they assured us also that the cleaning protocols are taking place. They monitor the cameras on the buses frequently, and they feel confident in the fact that the buses are being cleaned as we have required. Just before we get into the cafeteria, the last 2 months we have been monitoring our replenishing requirements. We are averaging about 30,000 a month on replenishing disinfectant, PPE, and the like. So it looks like about 300,000 for the year if we're in session. We are doing the reforecast right now, and we believe there is funding within the budget to cover the replenishing. However, the heating is something that we have to live through before we actually know what it's going to cost. And as Brian mentioned, there's going to be a lot of fresh air coming into the buildings. So that means there's going to be a lot of warm air going out. And we'll just have to monitor that as we go forward. With regards to the cafeteria, the elementaries and SACs, the sales are pretty much in line with what they have been for the last few years. So we feel like we're really holding our own from a profit and expenditure position at K-8. The high school, however, has dipped about 50% compared to what we've done in the past. And the high school has really been the biggest profit center of the entire program and has helped other schools in terms of holding expenditures in line with revenues. So our breakfast program and our after-school program is pretty much non-existent. It might be running at 10 to 15% of what it had in the past. And the lunch program is about 50%. So we continue to watch it very closely, but we do expect that we will run a deficit this year on the food service program unless something really changes dramatically. So we'll be reporting out frequently to the Ed Resources Committee on a monthly basis to let that committee know where we stand so that we're prepared in terms of what we can expect for year end. The good news is that we do have a fund balance in that account because of the fact that we've been running a profit for several years now, and that we did have an insurance deposit of $500,000 a few years ago. So I'm not concerned that we're not going to have sufficient funding in the account at year end. It's just going to be reduced from what it has been in prior years because of an anticipated loss. And I'll take a pause and answer any questions myself.
Brendan?
Thank you. Just on the internal services fund, how are we doing with that in our healthcare? Have we continue to see things tick up relative to what's normal?
Yeah, we did have the first 3 months were higher than normal, as I reported out. The last month, this past month of late October, early November, and the first week of December have normalized. So it's going to be interesting to see how it actually pans out and where the claims come in over the next few months. Joe will be coming to your meeting next Monday, and he will provide information on where he thinks the claims will be going forward.
Great, thank you.
Deanna?
So thanks, Joanne, for the update. And just could you sort of brief the board on the fund balance for the food services account? Because I know in last year's budget, we looked at contributing $200,000 from the food service to offset sort of our contribution to the internal services fund, and sort of how are we okay? How long do you think we might be okay? If you could just kind of go into that a little bit publicly.
Sure. So we had put $200,000 into internal services fund for FY20, and we sent $200,000 this year. So that's a total of $400,000, which did bring our fund balance down to around $700,000. And just off the top of my head, and these are just approximate numbers, I believe our loss last year was around $250,000. So we are, down about half of the, 50% of what the fund balance was 2 fiscal years ago. And that's something that we need to watch very carefully. We have to make sure that we stay within, at least a 10% of our sales, which is $2.2 million. So it's $220,000. We would want to keep at a minimum. So we're going to watch that. You know, this is the one area with COVID that's concerning to us because the high school program was phenomenal. I mean, we were hitting 70% of the kids on a daily basis, 6,000, 7,000 a day. And now that's cut in half, and it does put a pretty significant dent in the program.
So can you talk about maybe conversations that you might be having internally about the next budget cycle? And, you know, are we looking to maybe pull that contribution back for next year as we, you know, as we kind of regroup and figure out what's happening with the food services post, you know, hopefully next year things will be much more normal, but, you know, if we could kind of get what the thinking is at the, you know, the leadership level.
Yeah, I think that's a likely scenario, to be honest with you. I think we need to take a pause for a year just to see where we come out with the anticipation that COVID is going to pass and we're going to reestablish the program in the next school year, at least the you know, half of next school year and into the future.
Okay. Penny, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering with the air exchange systems, you know, we have so many buildings and they're all really large. Is there a level that we aim in terms of exchange of air per, you know, per hour or something that we're trying to get at all the different schools? And are we able to do it? Or are we just doing the best that we can at every school?
No, we actually had the schools, we had an engineer come in that balanced the air exchange for us when we put the fans in, and at the high school as well with their automated systems, and any other school that had the automated systems. And the goal is to change it over at least 5 times. We far exceeded that. So we're going to have to bring the balancer in again, the engineer in again that did the balancing, to really look at what we need and bring it to a comfort level that achieves the air exchange, but also does not create a thermal condition that's unmanageable for the teachers and the students. So we've been talking about that, and we're going to have that done soon.
I just had one other question.
Sure.
I was wondering, maybe more for Jill or anyone, but with the students back in school, even still dealing with the pandemic, are we seeing a reduction in the level of stress compared to last spring? Or what are we seeing in terms of the levels of stress that students are experiencing generally?
Well, I think that, we just finished a survey on the block schedule at the high school, right? We wanted to get a snapshot. We thought at the end of the first quarter, we put that survey out. And just a very quick look through the results here at the high school, at least, we're very positive around stress and homework, and they felt that pace was helping them. Right now, Hanover's putting together the responses into a presentation that we'll do in another month once it's all ready to go. But at least that's one data point that showed that students are benefiting from that, and it seems to be helping them to manage their homework and time outside of school a little bit. It's a tough question in general, but I do think that the fact that our schools are open, our kids are coming in, means that we can identify, we can see the kids, connect with them, and get them help more quickly if they're struggling with something. You know, when you're fully remote, you're doing outreach however you can, but nothing is better than seeing the kids and laying eyes on them and, you know, watching them, and if the behavior's off, you can help them out immediately. So I think that definitely helps. I also think the routine helps and predictability helps, you know, for kids. They like to have a structure. They like to have a rhythm in their days and in what they're doing. So definitely for our youngest kids, but even into the high school, they know what their days are going to be. And so that predictability is helpful. I don't know, Jill, if you're hearing anything else from the teachers specifically.
Certainly, I thought, you know, from a teacher's perspective or from a student perspective, I think that the students are doing well that are in school. I think we still struggle with reaching out to some of our remote learners and making them feel like they're part of the community and making sure that we're continually reaching out to them even during class instruction time. So it's trying to get the teachers to put them into breakout rooms and have them work into groups. But we're still working with that engagement level for the people that have opted to go fully remote. But those kids that are in school, it's pretty traditional to what we've been seeing, in years past. Bill, you may have more perspective from your angle too, of what you might be working with.
Yeah, I've been working closely with Susan Bliss to reach a group of students that are struggling. There are some students who are struggling, whether they're home, doing remote on a full-time basis, and we're having difficulty getting them to engage. We have plans in place on how we're going to outreach to those students and, foster engagement in their learning, even if they're fully remote. But I think, this is, as someone said earlier, this is going to be something that we're going to wrestle with, for the rest of this year in terms of the social emotional well-being of students, the anxiety levels. It's going to be something that's ongoing, and we're going to be wrestling with throughout the rest of this year and into next year, because there is a certain amount of the anxiety that's coming along with this whole pandemic, and with students worried about whether or not they're going to get sick or their family members are going to get sick, and stress around school. So there is a certain amount of that. We have a lot of support in place, and we've built a lot of support systems around the students to try and reach out and engage them, whether through the school directly. We're working with the community, with the town social worker at times, and the services through the town to really try and put together a safety net to make sure that we're reaching out and trying to engage all students to the best of our ability.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and I would just, again, going back to what you mentioned earlier about the extracurricular and co-curricular activities being available virtually as we enter these winter months, I think it's wonderful that the kids can access additional structure and routine in the afternoons in absence of, sports and other extracurricular activities that are currently canceled or on hold. So again, I would just, support the continuation of that, because I think it's been great, and it's just nice to see the kids, at least at my house, exercising and doing things they should be doing in the afternoon. So it's great. Thank you for all those updates. Very helpful. Oh, Carl, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think Brian had mentioned on one of the previous meetings that more students have been drifting back from remote to the full-time or hybrid. Has that trend continued?
No, I think in the recent weeks, certainly after Thanksgiving, we've seen it moving in the other direction. We've seen more drifting, more going to remote for family reasons, for travel reasons, and other things. So leading up to Thanksgiving, they were coming in. Now we're seeing the opposite of it. I don't have the numbers. I'd be glad. I'll share them with you. I'll pull it together.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to our action items for tonight. We have the budget assumptions and related priorities for the year 2021-22. And this is our second reading. I know that we all have a copy, and that we received the latest copy with some suggested edits from the board members, so thank you. Before we ask for a motion to approve, any other discussion, questions, or comments? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Sherry, second. Julie?
I think we moved last time. I think it's just the
Yeah,
vote.
we're just going to.
Oh, yeah, vote. Sorry, you're right.
The motion, yeah.
Okay. So all in favor?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
great, thanks.
Okay. Now, Motion to approve as a first reading, the 2021-22 and 2022-23 district calendars. Is there a motion? Brendan, second. Penny? Any discussion? Questions?
I'll just briefly share, just to set it up, if you will. We do generally approve a year plus in advance. We don't typically do 2 years at once because we have a more normal rhythm. But I thought that we would bring them both forward in order to catch back up. We'd like to be a year and a half or so ahead, and this year it's challenging now because we've been contacted by some families and others who are looking to plan ahead a year plus, because some of them are canceling close, plans that they might have had for February, March, and they're able to push it forward a year or two. So I thought that it could be helpful for folks, if the board agrees, to try to do the 2 years at once now, so that there's an understanding and predictability to that. The calendars themselves, we do 182 school days and 5 professional learning days, so it's 187 total days for our staff. And so this is 21-22 and 22-23. And we do generally like to do the 3 days before, the first being convocation, and then we'll often do a district day and a building day, and then so the way it works here, then the weekend to finalize, and then to begin on the Monday. Next year is a little tricky, as you can see in the September, where Labor Day is the 6th, Rosh Hashanah is the 7th, so that winds up being a 4-day weekend right there in the start of the year. But so be it. And we go through, and we do traditionally do a half day before Thanksgiving, half day before the holiday break at the end of the year. And then the other part is, and just giving the rationale, I'm glad to discuss and what have you for any of it. If you look in April 8th would be a day off, and then the week after. And then if you look in February, you see that the 18th is green, that's a professional learning day, and then the week after. The Board of Ed has in its policies that where feasible, practicable might even be the word, that we take the Friday off prior to a week-long break for our kids and our families. It's sort of a travel day. So they get that day, and you're able to capture, both weekends, and it just really extends the break for our students and families. We have the professional learning day on the 18th, and that would be the 5th day, which is why the 8th in April wouldn't be a PL day at this point. And again, it's only first read. You're welcome to take a look at it. I have it'll be on the website for people to take a look. But I do think people will be grateful to have it in advance so that they can plan. And I certainly look forward to the day where I can plan my vacations as well.
Yes. Just one question. Yes, Julie.
Just so if the day before Thanksgiving, then it's just not marked on here. I mean, we know it's a half day, but I think if I'm reading it right,
Right, it says it below. We're 11/24 half day.
Oh,
you
gotcha,
see the
okay.
red, but
Right.
yeah, it's not. We could put a line through it essentially, do something to designate it, as we did on the 23rd. Yeah.
for us visual learners.
Yeah.
I like that. Same for 22. Okay. Okay, so we'll have another look at this at our next meeting. Do we want to do that on Monday?
Well, Monday's the workshop,
Yeah,
so
on the 20.
we could though. I leave it to the board if you're
Okay.
comfortable with it, and you want to take a look and make a decision. We can always open up with an action item and then go into the workshop if we wanted to approve.
Okay.
Or,
Maybe if you have questions or you see anything that needs attention, please let me know, and then maybe we can just make the change or address it at our next meeting. Oh, Deanna?
Yeah, I would suggest waiting till the next regularly scheduled meeting because you want parents and anybody that is listening to this to be able to review it and have time. And typically there's 2 weeks in between meetings, so I wouldn't front run it to the budget workshop. I would wait till our regularly scheduled meeting, just in case somebody sees something that we don't see and has time to communicate with us.
Sure, fair enough.
Well, and I will offer, if it's for what it's worth, our next regularly scheduled meeting would be the week after on the 21st, which is, being in the holiday week and everything, sometimes we've canceled that meeting. So there is a possibility if we were comfortable going forward with it, we could have an entirely remote meeting for that purpose alone, open it up, do that, and close it in order to move forward if possible, if the board's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable goal to have this approved before we break, just so that families on the break can plan ahead.
If possible, I'd
Yeah.
like to do that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, I don't know what it looks like online there, but any comments from the public?
No, we're good here.
Okay.
I'd like to make one comment about the meeting next week. Can we have the materials ahead of the meeting?
Yeah.
Because
So
typically,
it's-
I know, last time I think we got it like in the meeting, and it's kind of, it'd be good to have it ahead of time just to review it and have, to be able to ask relevant questions.
Sure. So it's the budget workshop. We are working it's going to be a little different because it will be entirely virtual this time. So we should have a slide deck together in advance that I can certainly get to you.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how early. It depends because there's probably 20 different people working on a slide or two that'll all be put together, but we'll get you the weekend to take a look at it, certainly. And
Yeah, even if it's like just the day before or something, that'd be great.
sure.
And is there, there's no numbers in that deck though, right?
That's
This is
right.
just-
That's right. As the workshop, we're really talking about concepts and ideas and trends. Although this year, with Joe coming, Joe can't speak without talking about numbers. So there's definitely going to be numbers around the insurance and the reserve and those pieces. So we'll get those pages for you also.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And as I recall, I agree with Bob, that would be useful to get them earlier to review. And as I recall from last year, sometimes they were in sections. So if they were available, as different folks finish their slides, that could be useful too.
Sure. Good. Let me see. We're going to meet tomorrow night as an administrative team to work out some details, and we'll go from there. Definitely. So I do have a question for the board as far as Monday night goes. It's all virtual for all of us, as we know, and unfortunately, we can't serve you dinner. We'll do our best with that. But we're wondering if a 6 o'clock start, as we do traditionally, we start at around 6 and then we eat and go into the meeting. Does a 6 o'clock start work for the board or a 7 o'clock start? Whichever is best for you.
6 works for me.
Yeah, 6 sounds,
Flexible.
Does it work for
Fine.
everybody?
Yeah.
okay,
Sure.
great.
Good. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Then that's what we will do. And it's, again, our budget workshop, and it was a perfect setup. Thank you, Bob and Carl. We don't get into the numbers. It's a conversation with us. It'll be a little different, being entirely virtual. But we're looking forward to it. Got a lot of things going on, as you know.
Yeah,
We
looking
talk
forward to
about
it.
the future. We like to be future focused from time to
Yes.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
be good.
these days, definitely.
Welcome, future talk.
Yes,
Okay, any other announcements?
that's it.
That's it, okay. All right. So we will see you all next week, and with that, we'll motion to adjourn. Sherry, second. Penny, all in favor?
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, everyone.